Faith is a funny thing. Not only is it a name that will doom a young girl to either become a stripper or a country singer, but it, along with love, is one of the only things that people don't require any evidence or logical explanation for. Faith is just something that you feel. It could be in a close friend that you trust with anything, a significant other you know will never betray you, I'm sure, or, as you may have guessed, a relationship with a god or gods, whatever names they may be called. I find that I'm one of a handful of people that are quite supportive of religious discussions. I make an active effort to talk to people of all religions about their beliefs because I find them genuinely interesting. Talking about religion has made for some of the most stimulating conversations I've ever had because in many ways it can be the same as having any debate. Talking about conflicting viewpoints is the best way to open your mind, so someone discussing their lack of belief in any higher power with various people who do believe in one or many should be a good source of conversation.
Right.
Any conversation about religion suffers from many of the same roadblocks as a conversation about politics, but it's approached in a completely different way. While political discussions are more about people trying to prove each other to be outright wrong, religious discussions, from people with differing religious beliefs anyway, can often turn into attempted conversions, conscious or not. If I ask a simple question along the lines of what makes you believe in God, that can quickly descend into me getting a 2-hour seminar on why I should believe in God, and why the fact that I don't is totally fine, but if I did, I'd be so much happier and I'd go to heaven and, well... These conversations frequently turn this way due to individuals' dogmas, which are beliefs that are considered to be undoubtedly true regardless of any evidence in support of or against it. While Catholicism is the primary religious sect to use this phrase, various denominations of Christianity, along with small parts of Islam, use it as well. Catholicism has several creeds, most notably the Nicene Creed, that contain its various dogmas. I won't read the entire creed to you as it's somewhat long, but it essentially states that those who are Catholic believe in God, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit, and the various histories behind them. God is the Almighty Father, Jesus was crucified by Pontius Pilate and rose from the dead 3 days later, and the Holy Spirit speaks through the prophets. There's nothing inherently wrong with having these dogmas. I'd even argue that the word could be applied to a variety of things outside of religion. Just look at flat earth theorists. While most of the videos you can find on YouTube range anywhere from 15 minutes to 7 hours, the fine folk at Odd Reality were kind enough to summarize the millennia-old, ill-informed belief that the earth is not round, and give you several compelling reasons why.
Water, it's flat. Of course, natural motion is not considered and doesn't equal a curve. We have 0 authentic pictures of the Earth and they're all composites. No matter if you're on the ground, on top of whether you are looking out Toronto's skyline from Niagara in 1887, looking out high altitude amateur Chicago sun is conducted with right radius or even Milwaukee. I completely understand that the idea of a flattened stationary Earth seems ridiculous, but it's all part of it.
You will never be able to argue with a flat Earth theorist about why the Earth is round, which it is. It's round. I'm not in any way suggesting that having religious beliefs is ridiculous like believing the Earth is flat, but the parallels are there. There's no real evidence for or against any religions, but even if there was concrete proof that the god of Sikhism existed, I highly doubt that the 2 billion Christians in the world would burn their Bibles and start reading the Guru Granth Sahib. When it comes to something like politics, or even something less controversial like film or music, opinions are a bit more easily swayed because they're based on things that are objectively true. It's your viewpoint on those things that is subjective. Take Donald Trump's policy on building a wall between Mexico and the United States. It is objectively true that he wants to do that.
We need to build a wall.
It is also objectively true that he wants the government of Mexico to pay for the wall.
I will have Mexico pay for that wall.
Opinions on that information can vary wildly, as some vehemently support it and others harshly condemn it, but that's a conversation where you can make a list of pros and cons for and against a decision. Religion does not have that luxury. The only thing that is objectively provable about the large majority of religions is that they exist and people follow them. Anything from Christianity to Islam to Hinduism to Scientology all have the same amount of factual data backing up their belief system. Yes, it's much easier to laugh off Scientology because it was founded by a best-selling science fiction writer, it's solely based on collecting money from its members. South Park made that funny episode once, and it has a very cult-like way of indoctrinating people's beliefs to the point that family members are completely excommunicated from their families if they dare go against the church. There's a documentary called Going Clear if you want a little bit more on that. But while those qualities are definitely more harmful than most religions, there's technically just as much evidence for Scientology's legitimacy as there is for, say, the beliefs of Buddhists or the concept of reincarnation. For those of you who are religious and think I'm knocking you due to this lack of evidence, I'm not. There's no evidence that can outright disprove the vast majority of religions either, which is exactly why religious belief is so complicated. However, if you wander into the world of religious films, more specifically Christian films, you'd probably think that God himself had visited the earth and told everyone that all the other gods were just him in different outfits. The most notable religious films from recent years to come to mind is the God's Not Dead series. Yes, series. There are 2 of these monstrosities, and both of them made pretty huge profits off of tiny budgets. These are the Blumhouse horror movies of the religious world, with all the quality to match them. However, while both of these films were absolutely slated by film critics who reviewed the actual film, it was praised by a majority of people who went to see it, along with many churches. This can very easily be attributed to confirmation bias, which unfortunately follows religion faster than John Scares follows e-girls. Now, I won't be turning this into a video exclusively about God's Not Dead 1 and 2, but both of them are worth delving into. The first film focuses on a student who takes a philosophy course where Kevin Sorbo of Disappointed fame requires every student to sign a paper that says God is dead in order to pass.
Fill in the papers I've just given you with 3 little words: God is dead. Then you will bypass the section of the course in which students have traditionally received their lowest grades of the semester.
Now, most of you probably recoiled due to the immense stupidity surrounding how implausible this storyline is, but it doesn't stop there. In this film, every single person who doesn't believe in God is portrayed as an ugly, out-of-touch, mean individual, and everyone who does is beautiful and good. It also weirdly seems to think that atheism is the same thing as anti-theism, which it definitely isn't. Atheism is the lack of belief in a god, anti-theism is an opposition to religion. The sequel shares this issue, but we'll get to that. Professor Sorbo outright says that he hates God because his mom died even though he prayed or something, but that's not really why most people are atheists. Most people that are atheists don't believe in a god because there's no scientific proof for the existence of one. It's really that straightforward. Not everyone had some tragic backstory where they prayed to God and he didn't answer. That mostly happens in, well, movies. But do you want to know the conclusion? The young student totally ruins the one true Hercules and he leaves in defeat, and the whole bus claps and chants, "God's not dead." And then the professor dies. He dies. He's on his way to try and make amends with his ex that he mistreated, and he just gets slammed by a car as a conveniently close by reverend makes him a Christian right before he dies. There's a lot of things I didn't cover. Trust me, this movie is a bottomless pit of offensiveness and borderline racism, but just look at that attitude towards atheists. While the Christians enjoy a concert where the band also sings about how God's not dead, he's surely alive. God's not dead, he's surely alive. The main antagonist of the film is killed. The only reason I'd consider the sequel any better is because it's so incredibly ridiculous and nonsensical that it doesn't even pretend to resemble any form of reality.
I hate what people like your clients stand for.
It walks the line of unintentional comedy very, very closely. This one follows Sabrina, the mother of 3, as she gets fired for answering a student's question relating to Jesus.
Isn't that sort of like what Jesus meant when he said that we should love our enemies?
The writer of the Gospel of Matthew records Jesus as saying, "You have heard it said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy," which indicates a commitment to nonviolence.
No one would ever get fired for this. Ever. The student asked a question about Jesus in a historical context, and the teacher answered the question about Jesus in a historical context. Discussing religion as it relates to history is not proselytizing, which is what Mrs. Sabrina is accused of. Proselytizing is when you attempt to convert someone from one religious belief to another, which is rich, because that's exactly what these films do. There are definitely easier targets than these films to go for. Kirk Cameron's entire filmography comes to mind, but these two stand out to me as they made a ton of money. And given how generally positive the response from the Christian community seems to be, this is kind of alarming. I'm not saying that every single Christian on earth views non-believers this way, as me saying that would put me on exactly the same level as the geniuses at Pureflix. No, I'm saying that the people who saw and enjoyed this movie, even if subconsciously, probably can't stand atheists and probably think they're bad people, because that is unquestionably the message these films present. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, atheists can do the exact same thing to Christians. The elephant in the sanctuary is the ever-infamous Westboro Baptist Church, which has a very confusingly loud voice for such a small group, with a website literally named godhatesfags.com. The church's old website stated in 2011 that they had about 40 members, which is roughly the same size as the average congregation at my local church, in a city of about 15,000 people. According to the Pew Research Center, there are about 2.18 billion Christians worldwide, meaning that the 40 WBC members represent 1,834,862,385,321,101 septillionths of the Christian population, which, when written out, looks like this. Yet despite this admittedly vocal minority, and minority seems like a massive understatement, some people will say the WBC's actions are simply Christian rather than hateful. Now, of course, other Christians don't believe in this, but there is another vocal minority who believe the WBC represents Christianity at its most basic form.
If you think about it, the people of the Westboro Baptist Church are more Christian than anybody else.
While this is not a large amount of people, it's probably a larger amount of people than the WBC itself, so their existence is definitely worth noting. The most popular White House petition of Obama's entire term was for the WBC to be legally labeled a hate group. The petition, which was created in late 2012, racked up 367,000 signatures, which is the highest number of signatures received for any White House petition ever. I both understand and share people's disdain for the group, don't get me wrong, but when all they have to do is show up somewhere with signs to get a wave of news articles written about them, who really wins? The answer is them. Even if it's being ridiculed, their rhetoric is making the rounds because of how many people keep condemning them. Relating this to YouTube, think of the Westboro Baptist Church as the Zoe Berger of Christianity. I'm not saying Zoe Berger should offend you even nearly as much as the WBC, and I'm not saying she's a bad person because I've talked with her before and she isn't. But her rise to fame, or infamy rather, has some undeniable parallels. Every time she did anything, a video was made on her. Keemstar, Pyrocynical, Rice Cup, Scares, Nafuckers, Chubbs, all of these people made videos on her. They were all incredibly critical, except for one, but either way, she got people talking about her really rapidly, and that earned her 1.1 million subscribers in a mere 3 months. If people weren't so busy getting angry about what she was doing, she wouldn't have grown nearly as much. She definitely still would have grown. If I'm not mistaken, she was already over 200,000 subscribers before the videos on her started pumping out, but she wouldn't be anywhere near where she is now. The Westboro Baptist Church is very similar. They aren't growing in membership, in fact, they're declining, but they are growing in infamy, and any platform for them is a bad one, even if it's a platform of criticism. Condemning something like the Ku Klux Klan is one thing, as that group sports thousands upon thousands of individuals, but when a group's entire membership can't fill a movie theater, maybe giving them so much power in the media is a bit ridiculous. And now I've unfortunately run out of ways to delay the inevitable, because as depressing as it may be, terrorism is very deeply ingrained in religion. And I'm gonna do this by throwing more numbers at you, because that is the easiest way to make arguments about this. It's a sad fact of life. There are large amounts of Islamic terrorists. Many people take the fact that Islam is associated with terrorism and turn that into Islam is a hateful and violent religion. This is a massive political debate in and of itself, so I won't get too opinionated, but I personally find it difficult to believe that a religion with an estimated 1.6 billion people in it wouldn't have successfully killed everyone else on Earth if the religion was inherently violent. CNN posted an article in 2014 stating that, according to various estimates, there were between 85 and 106,000 militant jihadists worldwide. That number is unquestionably huge, but it also has to be compared with the entire population of Muslims, which, as previously mentioned, is 1.6 billion. That makes it 6,625 millionths of the entire population, or 53 in every 800,000. That number is high, but it would be infinitely higher if every form of Islam preached hatred and violence. For comparison, and to refer to earlier, imagine if the Westboro Baptist Church was the same size, we'll say 106,000 people, and was outwardly violent. Be honest with yourselves. Do you believe that people would label Christianity as a violent, hateful religion? If you thought no, I feel pretty confident to tell you that you're wrong. Islam has proven that to be true. There are Islamic people who want to kill non-believers, absolutely. There are also Islamic people who want to find their own faith and be good to everyone. The mindset seems to be that since there's little to no Christian terrorism occurring in the US, that means it isn't occurring at all. The Central African Republic would like a word with you. There is a group called the Anti-Balaka who have massacred and, according to some reports, cannibalized Muslims in an attempt to get them out of the country, which successfully drove thousands away. Yet despite the actions of this disgusting group, there's barely any information about them. Their Wikipedia article doesn't even break 400 words. The script for this video is over 3,000. As much as I would love to talk more about the Anti-Balaka, that's pretty much all the information there is about them. I know that I used a lot of examples and made a variety of different points in this video, but it can mostly be whittled down to two broad statements. Generalizing is stupid, and be flexible with your beliefs. Nobody thinks the same, not even when they declare themselves as part of the same group. You can't lump people together no matter what the situation is. Not all Christians think homosexuality is a sin. Not all Muslims want to blow up white people. Not all Jews died in the Holocaust. Jumping to conclusions has a very similar effect to jumping off a bridge. It never, ever ends well.